Hi, HRN listeners. We're celebrating our 15th anniversary, and we have a really fun campaign and an ask for you. This 15th anniversary tour is aiming to bring you closer to unique food and music experiences in some of the most exciting cities in America. All the while, we're raising funds to support our work empowering the next generation of food systems storytellers through our fellowship programs. Here's how it works. Donate to HRN and be entered into a raffle in the city of your choice to win a dinner for two at a noteworthy restaurant and tickets for two to a concert at a prominent local venue. We have incredible partners in New York, Los Angeles, Philadelphia, Nashville, Las Vegas, Charleston, Asheville, and Ardmore, Pennsylvania, who have donated a meal for two and two tickets to a concert of the winner's choice. And all donations help fund our fellowship programs, where we're helping to build essential workforce readiness skills and food system storytelling skills. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15. Thank you.
This episode is brought to you by Tabard Inn, new American cuisine in one of Washington, D.C.'s oldest hotels, located in DuPont Circle. For more information, visit tabardinn.com.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. Our guest is Julia Coney. We'll talk to Julia about black wine professionals and much, much more. I'm your host, Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Houston and DC-based Julia Coney is a wine writer, wine educator, speaker, consultant, and activist. Her wine writings also address the intersection of race and wine. Her work has been featured in prominent wine and mainstream publications. Born out of necessity, Julia Coney founded Black Wine Professionals, a resource for wine industry employers and gatekeepers, professionals, and the food and beverage community. Their goal is to lift up the multifaceted black professionals in the world of wine. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Julia Coney.
Thank you for having me. How are you?
Good. So due to the COVID-19 virus, we're still doing a remote broadcast via Zencastr. And Julia, you are in DC, right?
I'm in DC.
All right. And we were just talking offline how hot it is in New York and DC today. So we're glad to be inside. Julia, I don't want to assume that certainly my listeners, know everything about you. So before we get into a bunch of things, give us a little background on your journey in life and wine that got you into a career in wine writing and, currently the founding of Black Wine Professionals. And I know, because we'll get into how we know each other too. I know your wine writing, didn't come until later. So, give us a quick story. Don't take too long.
Okay. Well, in my late 20s, I discovered wine. I was a legal assistant living in Houston mainly at that time. And one of the attorneys I work with introduced me to wine through a barbecue pairing in Napa Valley Cabernet. And it's like 98, 99. I started, reading books and learning about wine and buying wine and traveling to wine regions. Fast forward, moved to DC in 2005, still a legal assistant. 2006, started a beauty blog and decided, in 2010 to leave my day job to do that full time. And
Wait, so you left legal assistant to concentrate on the beauty blog?
On the beauty blog, and that's how I got into freelance. And That was 2010. September will be 10 years freelancing for me. And 4.5 years ago, I decided I wanted to move into wine, and I started taking formal classes to actually be able to write about wine. I knew a lot about it, but I didn't, have any formal education and wanted that. And during that time is when I really discovered that the wine industry, in my opinion, had a lot of racial issues that really weren't being addressed.
Right. Now, go back a second. What was what was the compelling reason, to just drop everything and move forward on wine? I mean, that person that turned you on to Napa wines, your interest and love with it, but something in you said, just drop everything and do this. What was that?
My mother was living at the time, and she was here in D.C. visiting from the South, and she was like, you really are into the wine thing, I think, a lot more than the beauty thing, and you may want to pursue that. And my husband had been telling me for probably 2 or 3 years before I made the leap that I should move into food and wine, and primarily wine. He said, I think you're good at it. You're happy when you're drinking wine and going to these dinners and traveling to these wine regions. I think you should explore that. And as a freelancer, I went, okay, I did my research. I started reading some wine blogs, particularly Dame Wine from Catherine Todd, really spoke to me. And then I said, okay, well, I know how to talk with PR agencies. And I did wrote a press release that I was switching my endeavor to wine. And a lot of those people from the beauty industry had friends that worked in the wine industry.
Right.
And yeah.
Go ahead.
And that's how we are here.
Yeah, that's great. I know that travel has become a big part, of your life as a wine writer, and, you kind of wrap yourself in the wine writing around the travel. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit, none of us have been traveling. We'll get into Black Wine Professionals and all the issues, but what have you been doing the last 3-4 months?
I have actually been very busy. I've been busy as if I was traveling.
Okay.
Right when COVID hit, I was supposed to spend a couple of weeks in Houston, and I was like, I'll stay here in D.C. And I've been doing virtual wine tastings with a lot of the followers or people who followed me on social media. And they were like, you drink a lot of champagne. Can you start, doing these champagne tastings? And I reached out to my friends who are these amazing champagne producers. And they were like, we would love to come on. And then I partnered with a woman named Kelly Mitchell who works in sales at Skurnick to sell champagne and do all these virtual tastings. And so I bring like fun and education to virtual tastings. And I've actually did my last one last week and taking a break in August, to regroup with the Black Wine Professionals and get that. But yeah, I've been doing tastings sometimes 2 or 3 times a week. I have still been writing. That is one of those things as well. And just now I'm talking with a few consultants, some consortiums in Italy about, writing content for them so people can keep, Italian wine on people's minds and, French wine with everything going on.
So the virtual stuff that you were doing, you weren't doing much of that before we sort of all got sequestered, right? Is that something you started doing it now, right? I
only started doing it because I did, the movie Uncorked that came out on Netflix?
Yeah.
So the writer and director came on one of my chats. I said, hey, I'm writing a story for VinePair. Can you guys come on we're going to do a watch party. And can you come on after? And he and D-Lynn came, and they were supposed to stay 10 minutes. They stayed 30. And after it was over, he said, you should keep doing these wine chats. People want to know what you're drinking. They want to know who you're interested in, which winemakers you like, and you should keep doing it. And so he actually encouraged me to keep doing it because I only was going to do the movie chat.
That's a great story. And I've watched a bunch of them, and, they're terrific. You've been very present on social media lately, that included, and let's get into it. The pandemic doesn't seem to be going away. This whole racial inequality and police injustice thing, persists. It seems like the protests have quieted down a bit, although I think there's a pretty big protest today. Yeah. I worry, and I want to talk to you about this, I worry that the effort and message that has been put out there, will either fade, be forgotten, or not be as strong as life, tends to return to normal, after the anger dies. And there was some pretty good anger out there, but like I said, it's quieted down. I want to ask you, because I think you're tasked with this, this is one of your inner-driven tasks. How do we maintain, any of this presence and momentum, representing and promoting, the BIPOC community, women, in our industry?
We can continue to do it. I mean, part of the world opening back up helps our industry.
Right.
We can still post bottle shots and still be in protest. We can still do that. I think one doesn't negate the other. It is actually saying, hey, I'm actually having fun with wine. I actually like wine. I like to sell wine. I like to drink wine. I like to write about wine. But I can also say we still have issues with the systemic racism in this country. At the same time, I'm showing a bottle shot.
Right, where it's fair to say at a time we were only showing bottle shots and not discussing much else. Fair to say that?
Fair to say that, yes.
All right, so I know
Well,
diverse.
let me just
Go ahead.
say this.
Go
I
ahead.
think it's fair to say among people who are not BIPOC. To people who are BIPOC, this has always been the issue we've had our entire lives. So we've talked about it, we've posted about it, we've posted about Tamir Rice, we've posted about Sandra Bland, we've posted about Trayvon Martin, we posted about Amir Ahmad, still posting about Breonna Taylor. We're
Right.
posting about those things. People who are not maybe BIPOC have just really are now seeing like, hey, this really is a problem, because the world had to go on pause for it to happen.
Right. Pause because of everything that happened.
Because of everything that happened. But we couldn't have, I don't think we could have had this movement in February, right? Because
Or before.
the world was the same.
Right. I agree. That was my question was, yes. I mean, things are really being put out there and being discussed. I just, hope that, the momentum keeps going. And you make a good point, don't forget that and keep that, front and center, but also, the other stuff, just as important. We're in the industry, talk about wine and post about wine and all that stuff. Let me ask you this. I know diversity is a word that's been thrown around. It's kind of like a buzzword now, and I'm not making light of anything. It's almost like natural and natural wine.
Yes.
But it is an important word. And I know this because, I've been doing this for years and you've been doing it longer. Why has the wine and hospitality industry been so slow to be, inclusive? And more importantly, when it was in their face, how did they miss their chance? And, are they making efforts to get that chance back?
So I'm going to say, in my opinion, when you never had to deal with it, is almost, I think part of the industry may think we could have swept this under the rug.
Right.
Right? That's part of it. But I am a person that believes in giving people grace. And I believe you can come imperfect instead of trying to be perfect. That's my belief, right? And
What does that mean?
You can still do something now.
Okay.
You can still make a difference now. You can still say, hey, maybe we need to teach our staff when the world does open up, or when now everybody's in, just say in New York and DC where you're dining 6 feet apart in a table, we're here to sell wine. The color we need to worry about is green. How are we going to treat every guest the same?
Right. So key initiatives, that's one of them. Where realize that it's never too late, and let's be more inclusive, educate. What else?
You can hire people to talk. I mean, everybody's doing a program. You can say, as a company, we'll read the same book and maybe bring in a person who understands how to explain this, instead of you just reading the book and then you have this issue now, like, well, I'm doing my part and I'm trying and I don't know what to say. You have to say something. That's the key. You have to say something, because we all make mistakes.
Right.
No one's going to get it right? It's one of those. And if you have a board, and that's what happens with the whole CMS. They had a board, and the board wanted to say one thing, then the other board didn't want to say, and then they had to all come together. But at the end of the day, sometimes you have to go with your gut, and what's right, whether or not the board agrees.
So the CMS is the Court of Master Sommeliers,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And they are the body that sanctions, the sommelier classes and titles and all of that. The big thing was, as things were really heating up, they stood by idly and said nothing, right? Now, what you alluded to is there were two parts of it. There was a board and another part. I'm guessing the board didn't speak up and the membership wanted to?
Yes. And I get, what they were trying to do. And I understand they're like these governing bodies of nonprofits and different things. And it was just bad timing.
Right.
Now, can they make up for it? Absolutely. There are people who, are BIPOC who still want those pens. I'm not against the pen. How can I help you facilitate getting a pen? That's one of the reasons great segue, started Black Wine Professionals.
Right.
How can I help these Black wine professionals get noticed? You and I know how this industry works, how buying trips work, how media trips work, how importing trips work. How do I get more BIPOC people who are actually doing those things on these trips?
Well, that's a big issue, because I think the Court of Master Sommeliers, I think it's sort of cultural that they don't think that way. And I think when you extend it, into media trips, certainly retail, restaurants and all of that, because of what's going on, you see, change and efforts being made, but is it really going to change?
But we got to give it time too. We're not even giving it time. Right?
Okay.
We think about it. It's been 6-7 weeks.
Right.
Change. We have to give also change, and people learning, and people are scrambling. And sometimes I have talked to a lot of people. They don't really know what to do.
Right.
So that's why the conversations have to keep having the conversations and telling people what to do, because a lot of people don't know also how to ask for help, because in their mind they think, like, I thought I was doing something. Now you're telling me I'm not. But how do I do it, and who do I ask?
Right.
It's all those things, right? And it goes back to, if you have a BIPOC som in your restaurant and they're saying the customer is being racist, because I've heard all these stories and I know this happens, and you have a management who's like, oh, well, they were just drunk. Well, that still doesn't mean the customer's always right.
That's crazy.
Oh, yes.
God, that...
So we have to have also, too, where it's a safe space for people to say, hey, I'm being discriminated against in the workplace, and you need to stand up, instead of going, well, that's a $300 table, or that's a $600 table.
Right. What's a reasonable amount of time? You're very fair to say that it's only been literally a amount of weeks, maybe a couple of months, and you are pragmatic and patient. Some people are not, for good reason. I mean, to get things done, you got to do it now. But if you and I see each other, we come back and talk again on the air, when do you feel like 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, a year later, when do you sit there and go, well, went back to where it was, or you see all these changes? I mean, what's a fair period of time, where you should see some movement?
I think 6 to 9 months.
Okay.
I really think 6 to 9 months. I think things are moving. You have a lot of organizations being formed. You have a lot of people are donating funds. That still takes time. We're also still in a pandemic. So
right. Which is hampering things.
Which is hampering things. So we also have to, once again, understand timelines, right? We know that right now we're moving into end of summer, going into fall. What's the biggest thing for fall in the restaurant, in the hospitality industry? It's holiday. We don't even know what the holiday will look like. We don't know what the sales of like wine and spirits and food will be come October, November, December, those bigger months. So we also have to get through those.
Right. There are a lot of terrific organizations being started by some terrific people, some small, some, very large, some grassroots, some seem to be funded well. There are systemic barriers out there. Are these the organizations? Is this the type of setup to address and attack those barriers?
Well, I wouldn't say necessarily attack. I would say we're going to actually talk and change it. These organizations are, think about until Tahira Habibi saying that they wanted her to call somebody master.
Right.
No one would have known that. I didn't know that, and I'm friends with her.
You mean you didn't know that structure existed where you use that title, or
yes,
what?
I didn't know that. No, yeah. But most people a lot of people in the wine industry didn't know that.
Right.
They knew it was, they could call them a master som, but they didn't know that you had to address them that way.
Do you categorize that as a macro or a microaggression? That's that's major.
Macro and micro. That's small and big. It's because that's not even aggression. To actually tell people they should call someone a master just because you have the title.
Right.
And then, she having to live with this, she's saying to her, I'm not going to further in this organization. And she had to sit with that. So how many people who've come before her who thought the same thing?
Yeah,
So how many people did we lose? How many good people have we lost because of these organizations, too? So it's just not racial issues in the industry. Everybody has had their Me Too moment, not as much as the wine industry has. Eventually, those are going to come out as well. We have to just change. We have to change the industry because we want to change the world.
Right. How do we? That's a way of changing. Macroaggression seems so obvious, to identify and change, like that. The court of the master sommeliers addressing the master soms as masters. The micro stuff is something that, and you could speak to it much better than me because I know for a fact you just experience it way more than me.
Mm-hmm.
How do we address microaggressions? I mean, these are things that people are doing. They don't even realize it.
But the way you address a microaggression is when I call it out,
right,
and you are a person who has said it to me, you can't gaslight me like I didn't say what I said. Because
give me an example.
The biggest microaggression most black people feel, I say it all the time. Oh, I didn't know black people like wine, or I didn't know you people like wine. When someone told me this last year in California at a tasting room, who was a guest, because she, of course, turned around very curious of why the only black woman in this tasting room is getting all this special treatment, because how has she, all the wine glasses are there, the staff is one-on-one, but the staff member, I could see him cringe. He did not know how to respond to that.
So we're talking 2019, last year,
mm-hmm.
in Napa, California.
Yeah.
We're not talking any other time or place.
No, it's been more than that, but...
Oh, no, I know.
Okay, yeah.
I know, but I'm just saying that example, that wasn't... Hey, the story wasn't, hey, about 12 years ago when I was getting into the bit. That was like, 6 months ago, whatever it was.
Mm-hmm.
There's the old story, and it's the same thing. Women in wine have, felt issues.
Mm-hmm.
It would be that much tougher to be, a black woman. But a woman comes over to her table and, a bunch of old guys go, can you send the sommelier over? I would assume that, the same reaction is if you sent a black woman or a black man over too. That still exists, obviously.
Yes, and I've been hearing stories from women, the women of all races, about things that have been said, and I'm just going, wow, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
And so the way you address that, though, but if I'm working at a place and I don't feel like I can come forward and say, someone's showing me this microaggression, I need you to handle it, or I need you to know this happened. If I don't feel I can do that, then that makes me not want to be a better employee. That makes me not want to be a better person in this business, because I can go to you and you're not even listening to me.
Right.
Because it didn't happen to you.
Right. You said that, there'll be some change because we're more threatened than ever. Who's threatened and what's the threat?
I don't think they're going to be changed because people are necessarily threatened. I think they realize, if I don't make a change and learn how to make my company, my business, my world better, then I'm going to lose green. I'm going to lose money. Now, some people just don't care, and you're going to have those too.
Right.
But guess what?
That's a threat.
I don't have to drink their wine.
I agree. I mean, that's a threat to some extent. You know, when you're screwing around with a guy's business, his livelihood, and all of that. You're threatening his livelihood. But obviously,
but the thing of it is, you can have another livelihood, but I can't get another life. So I understand. When I say threatening somebody's livelihood, that is a lot, right? That is hard. That is something to really think about. But also, if you're okay being openly racist, you're threatening your own livelihood. I'm not. You're doing it. Right. And I don't mean by not speaking up. We have some people in the business who, they say one thing when they see people in public, but then, their Facebook pages are getting screenshot of the racist behavior that they're doing. I'm not messing up their business. They're messing it up.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a whole nother point. How people understand or transmit the message, or if they become allies, or they're just trying to clear their own conscience. We need people to be more active in that sense. I mean, many people have spoken up recently in the last 4, 5, 6 weeks with very tangible suggestions and ideas for change. A couple of weeks ago, I had Miguel de Leon on, and he had written 3 pieces. Yeah, I mean, he really, here's a young guy of color in the industry who's felt a lot of different things and really got to the point. Do you think the industry will continue to have credible voices like that? I mean, I think the door's been open for people to feel comfortable.
I think so. I think, the movement, as I like to call it, is not going anywhere. It's going to be reconfigured with time, of course.
Right.
But the basic of people now feeling like they have a voice, feeling that people want to feel worthy too. And people want to feel they're being heard. Now they know, hey, when we go back or whatever way, shape or form, we have a voice. We're here to be listened to, and we're also here to make this industry what we know it can be. So when people talk about, like Dorothy Gator in her article, the gatekeepers. So when the next,
explain to people what a gatekeeper is in our industry.
Okay.
Wine, hospitality.
I would say to me, a gatekeeper is the person who decides who gets in the room, who gets invited to things, whose name is on the list. I think the gatekeeper is just industry wide.
So that could be PR firms, media outlets, wine company, pretty long list. Yeah, so distributors.
Consortiums, those. So if you're doing, an industry tasting, like, which we also have to remember, tastings is going to look very different. The hygienic part of spitting out wine in a big, room is going to change. That's going to change. But when, people are offered master classes, right? Who's going to be invited now is going to look very different. Because when people who are allies, who are white, walk into that room and don't see people of color now, they're going to go, this is interesting. And they may not have never said that before. They may not have ever thought it before.
And
I guarantee you, they're going to now say what is happening.
They're going to act on it. Right.
They're going to act on it.
Right. That's an ally, or that's speaking up, or, that's doing something.
Exactly.
But, I just hope the industry doesn't continue to be so clueless, where after every...
We got to give them time. We haven't given them time. So my belief, I come from that place of glass half full. I'm going to give them time.
Okay.
I'm going to give them time, and I'm going to give them grace. Now, that's me saying it. I don't know what everybody else is, thinking. But I'm going to, and if they want to talk about it, talk it through, I'm okay with that as well. Let's talk about it. Let's have the uncomfortable conversation that you don't know if you want to have. But if you're willing to have an uncomfortable conversation, not a disrespectful, an uncomfortable where you see how uncomfortable it feels, and we can all change this together.
Right. So let's take who you are. You're a woman, African American. In an industry that we discussed a little about, some of its problems. What are your hopes as a black woman in the wine, in the hospitality industry? We've talked about timelines. We've talked about you're probably a little more patient than most people, but, what what can you imagine for yourself? What do you think will happen the next year or so?
I think the way the industry, I think from if we go down media side, I think there'll be a lot of new wine voices coming out now. People feeling they had a voice to speak about wine. I don't necessarily mean it's talking just about race, but they have a palate and they have a voice and they're going to use that. I think we're going to see more people, working with different entities in the wine world. Maybe we're going to see more people of color move into importing. We're going to see more people of color moving into educational roles as they come about slowly, working with different, larger consortiums, larger AVAs that spread the word. I do believe within the year is going to vastly look different, but I just have to give it some time as well.
Right.
Because I'm also going to reach out to the people who said that they were going to make a change. I'm going to hold them accountable to say, hey, we noticed that you said some things. How can you, have anything? Do you need our help to find you a person? If you say you want to provide harvest internships, how can Black wine professionals help you find a harvest intern?
Well, that's the reality. The reality is, there has been incredible change, an incredible amount of voices, an incredible amount of activism. Everyone has to be held accountable. That's the thing that the pressure has to, maintain and even grow, and I agree with that. I watched, I think it was right after everything started happening, your first video. And it was incredibly emotional. It was incredibly pointed. It touched on a lot of things about what was going on in the industry and what's wrong. But one of the things I noticed, and I probably noticed it a little more just because, I got a chance to get to know you, is this whole thing's been very emotional to you, but it's also been very physical. I mean, not only your mind, but your body, right?
Yes.
I mean, how do you handle all of that? I mean, there was a decent amount of crying. That's how upsetting and how much to a head it's come. It's
emotional. It's I call it emotional labor. It is trying. There are times I just have to turn my phone away, turn it off, turn the computer off, just try to escape into a book, go get some fresh air, go do some exercise. When you do activism work, no one ever really thinks about the emotional toll, the physical toll it takes on a person's body.
Right.
And I've learned practices that help me, do this. But then, we're having this conversation right after John Lewis died. And I can think that this man and those people and family members who helped desegregate all these places, how they felt back then with all the amenities I have now.
Right. It's mind-boggling.
It's mind-boggling, right? The things that they went through, right?
Yeah.
And for me to say, okay, I'm here to do this work and here to help people have a better life in the future and also do work they're proud of, I have to learn practices to deal with that. For me, that means drinking like a lot of bubbly wine and having a book and reading a book.
Right. That's your getaway.
That's my getaway. I'm a big fan of reading books, not just like wine books, but just I like murder mystery thrillers, and I do that, and I step away from the computer. I literally just leave the phone.
You have to. And I know you're a big champagne fan. I mean, I am too. I mean, that's the greatest drink. So that's a good combo.
I'm having bubbly while I'm on the phone with you right now.
There you go. Julia, we got to take a quick break. But when we come back, I want to talk to you specifically about Black Wine Professionals, because you really are the engine behind that, and a bunch of other things. We're talking to Julia Coney. You're listening to The Grape Nation, and we'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Tabard Inn. Tabard Inn, Washington, D.C.'s quintessential hotel, is located on a quiet, tree-lined street just 5 blocks from the White House. Vibrant yet unassuming, the Tabard is comprised of 40 sleeping rooms, each unique in character and design. Feast on an eclectic American cuisine in their acclaimed restaurant, or enjoy a cocktail and listen to live jazz in one of their cozy Victorian seating areas. Mingle with travelers from around the world who find the Tabard the only place to stay when taking their travels to Washington. For more information, visit tabardinn.com.
All right, we're back. We're back with my guest, Julia Coney. Julia, you founded very recently an organization called Black Wine Professionals. I always ask people this, whether it's finding an organization like this, writing a book. When and how did it come about? I mean, part of that answer is obvious, but, what's the specifics? Don't explain what it is yet, but just tell me when, you decided this had to happen, or if it was an idea, and how did it come about?
So it came about the night after I did that Instagram Live. I was so drained,
right,
like emotionally and physically. And I kind of laid on my floor and just cried for like some minutes to get it all out. And I tried to go to sleep. I tried to do the normal, like go to sleep, take a bath, read a book, go to sleep, and I couldn't sleep. And I kept thinking, what can I do? That's really where it came from. What can I do? So I woke up like 4 a.m. I eventually fell asleep, and it still was on my mind. What am I going to do? If I want to change the industry, what do I do? Who am I trying to help? And so the idea came to me was, okay, create a listserv of these amazing Black wine professionals that who a lot of times don't get access. They don't get asked for things. You have to create this. And I get on my computer. I realize the domain name is available. An email is available. The Instagram is available. And I literally start working on it the next day.
Jesus.
So it wasn't thought about 4 months ago. It literally happened in the 6 weeks. And I wrote out, what do I want to do? How do I help people get the next level of education? We all know those books cost money, those classes cost money, and these people want those things. So I was like, I'm going to found an organization, ask for donations, and I want to help people take classes. I want to promote these professionals. If I hear about a job, who can I send it to? That's how that came about. And then my friend of mine, Tammy, who does strategy and advising, when I called her, I was like, I need help. And she was like, what do you need me to do? That's really how that came about. It was not super thought out.
Well, no. I mean, you were almost driven.
Yes.
Your mind was in a certain place as far as what was going on. And then when we talked about the emotional and physical part, you needed, I wouldn't use the word escape, but you needed to put your mind to something that I guess in your mind was constructive in what you can do. And that would sort of get you, on the even better path forward, right?
Yes.
So, I mean, it all happened pretty quickly.
Very quickly. That's why I say it's been 6 weeks, so I think 7 weeks tomorrow. So it's like, yeah.
Here's a semi-unfair question, okay?
Go ahead.
The idea is it's near perfect, if not perfect. I mean, the whole idea of what it is. Why not sooner? I mean, this would have been great. Do we need things in the world to sort of gel to get you to think that way?
I'm going to tell you why not sooner. You saw my travel schedule. I wouldn't have been home.
Right.
To think, right? I was the person that the world needed to get quiet for me. I hate that it had to happen because a man was killed in the middle of the street. But that was the only way that had to, unfortunately, that circumstance had to cause this because I was traveling so much. I was gone literally 2.5 to almost 3 weeks a month.
Right. Now, you've always been active and activist. I could point out articles, you've written and discussions you've had, years and years back. But like you said, I guess the world has to come to a certain point where you really, sit down and formulate all this. You may have touched on some points, but the mission statement of Black Wine Professionals is what?
The mission statement is, I don't want another person to tell me they don't know any black wine professionals to hire for a job.
That's the oldest excuse in the world. I would, but where do I go?
Where to go?
You know, it's the always there, them, that, you know, there's not that many, you know, it's bullshit.
It's bullshit.
Yeah.
And it means like I've done the work and I'm continually adding people, and you know, this way you don't have to do your Google search. You literally go to one website and we divided it up. Media, sommeliers, educators, marketing, sales. We're going to have a job board on there so people can post their jobs for looking for people, because it goes back to things like, just say a harvest intern. How does a person who wants to work a harvest intern know that there's an intern spot available?
Right.
That's it.
This is, you know, a spot to list all of that. I want to cover a bunch of things. The first thing is, how do you get people to get to you with that information?
So we have an application process and on the site, and so a form that people fill out. And what we do with this, we put them based on where they fit into the listserv, right?
Right.
If you're a wine buyer, wine director, you're there. And one of the things that is most important is you have to, if you're certified, if you have a certification and you haven't been working in the business long, you have to have skin in the game. Because we're not looking, and that's one of the reasons it's about professionals. I didn't put influencers. Right. I am not an influencer person for that. There are people that do that. It is for people who are actually actively working in wine. So if you're, and also the requirements, if you're a podcaster, you have to have a podcast that has current content.
Right.
So I can say, hey, you've been podcasting. This is a person, if there's a podcasting conference that's going on eventually, hey, you guys, there's a podcast conference. You might go there and learn some tips. One of the things we also want to do is help people with funding in different areas. So certifications, one of the things with scholarships, you have to already have been certified, because we all know that if you don't have skin in the game at the beginning, it's really hard, right?
Right.
But if you're a CMS certified, but you're trying to get to advanced, or maybe you got accepted, we're gonna try to help you with that. WSET 2 going to WSET 3. There's a big leap in education, but there's also a big leap in cost.
Right. So you're a resource for that.
We're a resource. We're trying to, that's one of the reasons I want to do. I want to be able to say I can supply 10 to 15 WSET scholarships, 10 to 15 CMS, CSW, because one of the things I tell people, if you have been in the industry long enough and you don't have those, that's fine. But you have a lot of people with career changes like myself who had to pay those fees, right?
Right.
And they keep adding up. Books add up. And also, let's be honest, wine adds up. How do you get the taste of wine?
Well, that's always been a big issue. You know, that's been pushed aside, because I wouldn't use the word elite, but, you know, the people that always did that didn't have to worry about getting groups together. Mm-hmm. The money for wine, the 8-10 years of time, and the cost for the certification, you know, it's a big step.
Mm-hmm. But also, we know it also means people, like when they go to get, you know, jobs, or they go to present classes, they maybe want to present workshops. Like, you may, you know, people who love France, right? And they want to become a French wine scholar. How can I help them become a French wine scholar? That's what they love to drink.
Right.
But then, yes, we can pay for the course, but we also have to help you get wine.
Right. So I think 3 important things you need to address is, if you are a resource, I think we discussed how you get to Black Wine Professionals. If you need the resource, you explained a little, you know, we're not talking about green people, you know, we're talking about people who have a little skin in the game. Mm-hmm. You go to the website, right?
You go to the website and apply, and we'll be announcing scholarships and webinars and seminars in September.
And that's people seeking the resources and people that have the resources, right?
Exactly.
Both sides?
Yes, both. Like, if you're a black wine professional, we're going to, like, one of the seminars I want to do is on Willamette Valley.
Right.
Getting the person who knows somewhat to teach that course. Because if you live, like, East Coast like we do, we only get so much of the Willamette Valley. We don't get what a lot of people get on the West Coast.
No.
So, but going through all those different AVAs and really speaking to that just as the learning, because also we have to admit, we don't know where we're going to be in September. So that's why everything's going to be virtual. So then if you're a part of Black Wine Professionals, if you miss it for whatever reason, you'll get a link to watch it.
So there'll be everything will be sort of archived and all that, which is great.
Yeah.
I said three things. Where can the resource go? Where can the person who needs resource? More importantly, if people are listening and they go, this is a great idea, I'm not looking for a resource, I can't offer one, but I can offer financial support. How do people, you will take donations, right?
Yes, it's a donation button on the main page. It's a donation button on the About page. And I respond to everybody, who's like donating. And I always say no donation is too small. And I think sometimes people feel like donations always have to be big.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
It's we've had donations from hundreds of dollars to $5, and they're the same beautiful donation, because that's going to go to someone I'm working with someone who is they applied to do a harvest, and they reached out, and they're going to have to get to California. Those donations are going to help them get to California.
Right.
They're going to also help them stay in California.
So people, we need donations.
We need donations.
Go to Black Wine Professionals and spend some time on the site to understand who the people are, what they're doing. And like I said, if you're a resource, get in there. If you're looking for it, get in there. And if you want to donate, get in there too. Is it blackwineprofessionals.com?
Yes.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
all you need to know. All right. A couple things. I do a thing called the wine list where I ask all my guests 5 questions about what they're drinking. There's no way I would let you get off the show without me asking you, my wine list. But take a minute or two. I just want to ask you about 2 more things.
Oh, yeah.
I think the tariff thing is back in the news.
It is, and I'm about to post about that tomorrow.
You've been very close to retail and, travel and all of that. What's your feeling? What's your gut?
I'm scared. Just when you think you get a reprieve from one thing, you get slammed in another. I'm actually going to go, write a blog post about it. I'm going to do an Instagram live about the tariffs. I'm going to link on everything I have about people putting comments again, because the comments are open.
Are you going to link resources where people can, write to congressmen or whatever, stuff like that? Okay.
The comments are open on the U.S. Trade website again.
Right.
And so I'm going to link to all those in my bio on my Instagram. I'm going to put it in Twitter today. I'm going to actually put it also on the Black Wine Professionals information thing, because we need more comments to say why the tariffs are hurting. I mean, it's hurting a lot of people already, and it's sad to watch. So we have to remember that fight isn't over as well.
Right. Do you think, in light of everything we talked about, activism where people have to be allies and things have to change, you throw tariffs on top of that, it's going to make everything twice as hard?
Yeah, and that's the thing too. I'm actually emailing all the Black Wine Professionals and telling them they have to vote as well. So it's not like we need to talk about this business, and we need to talk about this stuff is still going on.
Right.
And because I think voting closes August 6th or 8th or something. So we have to really get the comments in now.
If people want to, like you just mentioned, you're going to be writing a blog on this. If people want to, if they didn't know or don't know where to follow you, where do they go to follow? I know the answer, but I want you to tell everybody.
I am at Julia Coney on Twitter, Instagram, and my website is juliaconey.com. I'm pretty easy to find, yeah. JuliaConey.com, just so everybody knows.
Yes. All right, last thing, and then we do the wine list. I mentioned earlier that a big part of what you do is travel. And before I ask you the question, I just want to link myself to Julia a little. Julia and I were invited almost this time last year to Uruguay, which certainly is an interesting wine country, on one of the trips to taste and tour the country, meet the people and their wines. And I think we both agree it was an interesting trip. What's funny, Julia, was was an old Jewish guy, a black woman, two gay guys, a Latino. I mean, did pretty good, right?
It was a great hodgepodge. It was
that was a good hodgepodge.
It was a great hodgepodge.
And one of the reasons I love, sitting, on this podcast is talking to you is because I had that opportunity. I told Miguel, that I knew you intimately, not the way you would think, but we were in a hotel together for 6-7 days. We had every meal together. We were in cars touring the country. You really get to know somebody, quickly. And, I'm just so happy, that we had that opportunity. And that's sort of the setup. So the question is, you won't know the answer to this, but it's what do you think? When do you think you'll be able to hit the road and travel again?
Part of me was hoping I could go to Champagne for harvest this year. I don't think that's going to happen.
If you know somebody specific, maybe not jumping around, but maybe go somewhere for a week to one place.
Yeah, but I'm trying to literally lean in and just embrace this time of being home. I'm getting home projects done because I was not home. I'm enjoying my husband because I was not home. Just for a long time.
Do you think you're home till the end of the year at least?
Oh, I'm not. I guarantee you I probably won't be able to go anywhere until 2021.
Right. So that Champagne thing is just a dream.
It's just a dream.
I agree with you. And there's as anxious as we are, there's no reason, to push it for your own health and
for everybody else's health.
Right. All right. So, Julie, we have a thing called the wine list. It's 5 questions. We ask all our guests the same 5 questions. I've interviewed upward of a couple hundred people, and they've all answered the question. I post them on social media because people are very curious to hear what our guests and wine professionals like you drink. Mm-hmm. So that will be posted. All right. So here's the wine list. 5 questions. First question is, what are you drinking now?
Immediately right now, I'm
drinking... seasonal, what's in the fridge,
I'm drinking Reventos y Blanc.
Explain what that is.
That is a Spanish sparkling wine. They're trying to get a DO. They broke away from the Cava DO. So I am currently drinking their rosé.
So that's a whole different story, and I may even do a show on it. Cava and Spanish sparkling wine is a great value, and there's some good stuff. There's a bunch of guys that said, screw the organization, we're going to do our own and, do it under our own regulations and stuff. And Reventos was one of them, right?
Yes, and I am drinking, the rosé is phenomenal. It's made with Zarello, Macabeo, Parellada, I'm saying that wrong, and Monstrel.
Very nice. All right, anything else?
I am always drinking a bottle of Champagne Lallier Brut Rosé, which is my house champagne.
Wait, the maker is Lallier?
Yes.
Spell for me.
Lallier.
Okay.
That is my house champagne.
And is it a value champagne? It's not too crazy in price?
It is $50.
Perfect. All right, so that's good. Doing good so far. Julia Coney's favorite wine and food pairing. Not something you necessarily eat every night, but something that resonates with you.
Brut Nature champagne and crawfish etouffee, or just boiled crawfish.
Okay, so I'm going to tell you that of the 200, nobody's ever given that answer, which is what I love, okay?
Crawfish all day. I'm from the South. I love crawfish.
I know. But it's sort of like, it's sort of like your version of oysters and champagne.
Exactly.
Right?
Yes.
That's a good one. All right. So this one, I got to figure out how we get you to answer. The question is your favorite wine restaurant and or bar. So I would think, because D.C. at this point as well as anyone, that it would focus on D.C. But maybe in your travels, if you went into a place where the wine list was so great, the environment was so good, the people were so nice and knowledgeable, that type of thing. Well, give me some favorite wine restaurant and or bars.
Okay, in D.C., wine bar is Maxwell Park. The 9th Street Shaw location, which is like my favorite, by Brent Kroll. I just go there and it feels like family. If I'm in Houston, Sonoma off Richmond Avenue, that's kind of like where I hang out, is one of those places. I just love Sonoma. actually June Baby in Seattle, Washington.
Yeah, I've been hearing things about it.
Oh my God, just so much fun. Air Champagne Parlor in New York.
Ariel, yep.
Yes, yeah, that champagne parlor is just so much fun, right?
She just reopened, with a deck outside in New York
with
City,
the deck
which
outside.
is great to hear.
And of course, if I'm in Paris, I'm like always, it's two places I'm always going to go. Juveniles.
Right.
And then the local spot is Bread and Roses. I get the hamburger with whatever Bordeaux they're pouring on the list.
That's the way to do it. Leave it to them.
Leave it to them. Yeah, and they all. I'm like, that's mainly the thing I get from there, from Bread and Roses is this hamburger. But Juveniles, I just tell them to pour me something.
Good ones. All right, fourth question. Favorite all-time wine? I'm very redundant when I do the wine list because I have to explain it to my guests. When I structured the question, it was like, what was the most expensive, rare wine you ever had? Then I realized that's a little stupid and elitist. So it kind of morphed into what it should have been. What is a wine that is important to you, that, made an impression, that changed the way you're thinking, that you still look back, the wine, the vintage? Can you think of a favorite all-time wine under those descriptors?
I'm going to describe the one that really made me look at wine differently. 1996 Camus from Napa Valley and Clos de Val. It was paired with Texas brisket.
Those are good wines for Texas. The Camus is very. Was it the regular or the special selection?
It was the regular, and it was 1998.
Which wasn't a great year in Napa, but it doesn't.
No, but the year I had it was 98. It was 96.
Oh, 96
yeah,
was a very
96.
Good year.
Yes,
and the
very
Clos de Val Cabernet?
Yes, they were both Cabernets. The Clos de Val went with the ribs, and he paired the Camus with the brisket sandwich. And I was like, what is happening in my mouth? Because that was a divine pairing.
So before I ask you the next question, let me ask you this. I enjoy and admire Napa and California wines. Mm-hmm. I've kind of moved away from it. I like Beaujolais now and Italian wines and the Loire and they're all around Barolo, Barbaresco. But I did sort of cut my teeth, in the late 80s and 90s on Napa. Was that the same with you? I mean,
it was the same with me.
That was the door into finer wines and big stuff.
Finer wines. Yeah. Like that's why to me when people ask me, I say that. It is not because, of course, I'm drinking different wines like you from all over, but that's the one that got me where I am today. Had I not had that pairing, I don't know, because I come from a family. My family doesn't drink.
Right, which is interesting. Because there's old Italian families that always had wine and they don't consider that drinking. It's like culture and all of that. Have you stayed as enthusiastic about that and moved on to other things, or moved on?
I have not completely moved on, but the thing of it is they're doing some fun stuff in California. I think what Carboniste, the husband and wife from Carboniste are making a sparkling Albarino.
Spell that.
Carboniste. Carboniste.
Carboniste. Okay, I'm going to post that.
Yes, I think what they're doing is very interesting. I think if you think about Michael Cruz, Lioco, I think when we think about California, we just kind of go, oh my God, it's crazy, right? And I don't want that big wine, but if you also think of Lodi, you have Acquiesce wines. She's doing Picpoul Blanc in a land of Zinfandel.
Yep.
She's doing all whites.
Very well said.
I think you have to understand California and also go, there's so much of California.
Beyond,
beyond what we're used to.
If Route 29 Napa Trail,
Yeah, if you think about what Mendocino, and you could even think of somebody who has been around like Bonterra, what they've been doing for years.
Aren't they an organic producer?
Yes, and they are Mendocino.
But forever, yeah.
Forever. So I think is what we have, which is fine. Right? Yep. We can have those bigger wine, but we can also say what other people are doing in the space of California. Like for me, I love sparkling products. I always have on hand J Vineyards. I think for the value and the price, it works.
What's the name of it?
J Vineyards and Winery.
Oh, J,
yeah, right?
Yeah, great stuff.
But you have interest in new people with Carboniste. But I
Right.
love, like, it's kind of like, what of the wines I think a lot of people like is Literai. They're out of California.
Well, he's a legendary winemaker.
But
Ted
it's
Lemon.
still, I know, but it's still, right? Still
Yeah.
California, because people just
No.
love-
I think you made the point, and you ended with the point, that a Literai, which has been there forever, is just always has been a good example of what California should and could be. And you mentioned a lot of new guys. All right, we have a couple of minutes left. This one, last fifth question, I think you would do well at. I need you to recommend the best wine around 15, 20, 22 bucks retail. I need you to recommend a red and a white. You could be specific. You could do a region like Muscadet, Beaujolais, whatever. I always say my kids, they're in their 20s. They can't show up with a crappy bottle of supermarket wine for $9, $11. They certainly can't afford, 40. So how do I wow with 20? Give me a red and a white.
Okay, so the white, I'm going to say Picpoul de Pinet.
Okay.
Get a white from get a white. You're going to have a good old time, or a Chenin Blanc.
Okay, I agree on both of those heavily. Give me a red.
My red, I would actually say, because go with a Barbera.
Okay, like the Alba or the Asti.
Cantina del Pino.
Okay, that's the
Barbera.
maker, right?
That's the maker. Retail is $20.
Man, you hit that one right on the head. All right, Julia, we're running. An hour went by quicker than both of us thought.
Wow.
I got to wrap up. Let me do a quick wrap up. I want to get some info from you. If you have a question, suggestion, wine happening, or event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation.com. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Subscribe to The Grape Nation wherever you get your pods. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation, on Instagram at sbenruby, on Twitter at benruby. I know it's confusing, but pay attention. Use the hashtag always, The Grape Nation, on both. Like I said, we will post Julia's wine list on our social media sites, probably starting in the next few days. The wine list will be on Monday. Julia, let's go over it one more time. If people want to find out more about you and Black Wine Professionals, juliaconey.com and blackwineprofessionals.com?
Yes.
Okay, and if they want to follow you on social, same thing, right? You're at
Same
Julia
thing.
Coney on Twitter and Instagram, I think, and Black Wine
Yes.
Professionals is a Instagram account too.
Yes.
All right, so that's the info. I want to thank our guest, Julia Coney. Julia, thank you for taking time. I want to thank our engineer, Amanda, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby, and you've been listening to The Grape Nation. The Grape Nation is powered by Simplecast. Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Instagram and Twitter at heritage_radio. You can also find us at facebook.com/Heritage Radio Network. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be part of the food world's most innovative community? Subscribe to the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join the HRN family by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. And thanks for listening.
Hey there, I'm Lee Ullman here with some big news from the National Young Farmers Coalition. We're partnering with Heritage Radio Network on a special season of The Farm Report. It's all about what's happening with the Farm Bill and how it impacts farmers and eaters.
I am growing diversified vegetables on land that's been in our family for 150 years.
And so with the pandemic, gentrification, property values going up, we had to sell the land and we lost it.
Join us as we uncover the untold stories behind this massive piece of legislation that shapes how we grow our food, what we eat, and so much more.
The problems we have had, those are things that come from earlier Farm Bill and USDA policy, right? Like Earl Butz, get big or get out.
You know, it's my responsibility to know not only what I'm eating, but then like how that all came to be, and realize like, wow, like this piece of legislation, all this money, like it's technically something that I support as a taxpayer.
While Congress debates the next farm bill, this is not just an invitation to listen. It's a call to action. Be part of the conversation. Subscribe to the Farm Report on Heritage Radio Network, wherever you listen to podcasts.